The Super Empath. It is well known that our kind target those who have empathic traits. Just like those of my persuasion operate on a spectrum, those who exhibit empathy do so as well. There are those we might regard as the normals, those people who have some narcissistic traits and some empathic traits. As ever, when I use the words empathic and empathetic, I state them with reference to certain traits such as empathy, honesty, kindness, decency, and such like. I do not use the words in the sense of being in tune with the world and the environment. The normal are in the centre, possibly leaning one way towards my kind or the other way towards your kind. It is extremely rare for a normal to be ensnared as a primary source because, put simply, they do not cut the mustard. Their emotional responses are not sufficient. Their empathic traits, whilst evident, are not sufficient to either bind to us or provide us with the fuel that we need. Such a person would easily pass a homeless person begging, a person crying alone on a bench, or somebody who'd fallen off their bike and injured themselves. They are self-absorbed, but not to the degree that our kind is. They will help if they really have to, but they do not go out of their way to act in a way that causes harm to anybody else. Thereafter come those who are empaths. Empaths are always targeted as primary sources. They often fulfill secondary roles as well. They are rarer in a tertiary source position, since if they are an empath, they would be better suited to either being a primary or secondary source to us. We would not want those empathic traits to go to waste. The empath has a good range of empathic traits, those of honesty, decency, having a strong moral compass, and being a good listener, just to list a few of them. They may not have all of the empathic traits that we look for, but they will have several, and exhibit them in a concentrated form. Thus, this person would look to donate to a charity, hand a wallet in that was found in the street, help a stranger who is in distress, sit and listen to somebody who has problems and acts of a similar nature. Next comes the super empath. This person is not a codependent. Both the super empath and the codependent have many, if not all, of the empathic traits that we look for, and they have them to a stronger degree than the empath. For example, both might take the homeless person under their wing and take them to a shelter, maybe even house them themselves for a period of time. They would try and locate the person who had lost their wallet in order to hand it back in person, rather than, say, hand it in the police station first. They will listen to the person with problems and then offer practical solutions to resolve those difficulties. The codependent gains validation from such acts through giving, and has to do this to an excessive degree, even when it goes beyond what is good for themselves, such as their inherent addiction to the act of giving and selflessness. The codependent may not actually be that strong an individual. They are strong in the sense of the abuse, however, that they can soak up, but they are not strong as they have no identity to assert. They must form one through self-flagellation, giving and not taking. They are somewhat masochistic in nature, driving themselves to the point of collapse and illness, because they lack the strength to escape and the desire to do so from the clutches of our kind. Lesser narcissists and mid-range narcissists hook up with codependents, especially because they give, and give, but do not fight back. They would rather challenge themselves, blame themselves, and always make excuses for their abuser. The super empath is also a giver, but whereas the codependent is masochistic in his giving, the super empath does so from a position of strength. They hold their ability to empathize, to heal, to fix, and impart goodness as a great gift, and one which ought not to be abused. They are drawn to our kind less because of the codependent's need to seek validation of identity through a narcissist, but more because they are initially attracted to the apparent emotional output of the narcissist. The false strength which the narcissist exhibits at the outset of the seduction, the confidence, the apparent satisfaction with his self, that he appears comfortable in his own skin, is at ease with others, capable of lighting up a room, and so forth, is a huge attraction to the super empath, because that person actually sees something of themselves in the narcissist when the narcissist is seducing. That is not to state that the super empath is a narcissist, far from it, but the super empath is just as engaging as the narcissist, and thus there is a mutual attraction. The super empath is also more challenging to the narcissist, and therefore is usually the recipient of some mid-range narcissist's attention, and most often the greater narcissist. This is not because the super empath is awkward or reticent, but rather he or she will be forthcoming with his or her empathic traits once she feels that they have been earned. Accordingly, the narcissist must put the extra miles in terms of seduction, in order to ensnare the super empath. This person needs to be coerced into sharing the fruits of their empathy. But once that trust has been earned, once the gate has been unlocked, the benefits are huge. The super empath shines with empathy, glows with decency, and pours forth delicious fuel. This continues during devaluation. The empath and the codependent are easier to break in terms of causing negative fuel to flow. The super empath is made of sterner material and will resist the negative machinations of the narcissist at first. This may result in the narcissist disengaging if he does not feel able to impact on the super empath, and thus must seek fuel elsewhere. The greater knows who he has ensnared, and knows once again he must unlock the fuel source, this time negative, with the super empath, and once it is done, the tidal wave of fuel is to be enjoyed. The super empath will remain, wanting to fix the narcissist, exhibiting again the same empathic traits of others on the empathic spectrum, but again, being made of sterner stuff, their descent towards numbness and malfunction is far slower than that of the empath. The super empath will keep providing the fuel, but deteriorates at a slower rate. The risk factor, however, with the super empath is that their own personal integrity is greater than that of the empath, and very much greater than that of the codependent, and consequently, of all of these three classes of empath, the super empath is the one more likely to make a bid for escape and thus leave the narcissist with a cessation problem. The super empath has both empathic traits and narcissistic traits. However, the strength and frequency of those empathic traits outweighs the narcissistic traits considerably. There are, however, instances when the super empath can dim, not switch off, but dim those empathic traits so that the narcissistic ones become more prevalent. When this happens, the empathic supernova occurs, which is something that I shall be describing in a separate recording. The challenge of unlocking both positive and negative fuel proves an attraction for the right type of narcissist, because this allows him to assert his superiority and enjoy the challenge. The reward is magnificent. Excellent fuel, and such that deteriorates at a much slower rate. The downside is the potential for the super empath becoming aware of what is happening, becoming unwilling to dedicate further energy to staying with the narcissist to fix and to heal, and thus the super empath escapes. The super empath requires fairly careful management by our kind, but the rewards always mean that this person is a challenge, which is often accepted by us.